Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The morning sun reflected off the gleaming cobblestones of a quiet avenue in the port city. Navy flags fluttered gently in the breeze in front of the local headquarters, and the air carried a faint scent of salt and naval fuel. In this golden light, Admiral Marcus Thompson, in his 50s, black, with neatly combed salt and pepper hair, walked with assurance. Each step echoed the discipline and gravity of his years of service. Marcus wore his immaculate navy blue uniform, studded with medals and badges that told a story of decades of sacrifice, battles fought bravely, and undisputed leadership. His deep brown eyes surveyed the city calmly, but also with the vigilance of someone who had learned to anticipate chaos within the apparent order of the world. Today, he was attending an official ceremony where he was to receive awards for his outstanding service to the Navy. His schedule was packed, but his mind remained clear, focused on the honor of serving his country. Behind the wheel of his service car, a dark and elegant model, Marcus drove slowly, enjoying the tranquility of the morning before the bustle of the ceremony. That's when a siren wailed behind him. A police car overtook him and screeched to a halt, blocking his path. The officer who got out, Officer Randall, white, young, with a hard stare and a stern expression, seemed determined to assert his authority. Without even a word of courtesy or acknowledgement of his uniform, Randall demanded that Marcus turn off the engine and get out of the car. Marcus, surprised but calm, attempted to explain, "Hello, I am Admiral Marcus Thompson, Commander-in-Chief of the Navy in this region." Randall ignored him, abruptly interrupting and claiming that Marcus posed a potential threat. In the seconds that followed, the situation escalated. The man behind the uniform found himself humiliated, handcuffed, and his respected name threatened to vanish under the weight of an absurd accusation. For Marcus, this moment would not just be a personal affront. It would be the catalyst for a much larger battle, against racism, abuse of power and injustice, in a society where even an admiral was not always safe from hatred and misunderstanding. The siren had fallen silent, leaving Marcus alone with the muffled sound of morning traffic. Agent Randall, his face impassive and his jaw clenched, approached with military stiffness, ignoring the medals that glittered on the admiral's uniform. "Sir, I am arresting you for dangerous driving," Randall said in a dry, unequivocal voice. Marcus took a deep breath, his voice calm but firm. "Officer, I'm driving my company vehicle. You can see my uniform, my rank, and my medals. I haven't committed any infraction. May I know the exact reason for this stop?" Randall narrowed his eyes and leaned slightly towards him, as if to intimidate him. "It doesn't matter who you are. Get out of the car. Now." Marcus sensed a wave of indignation but refused to give in to emotion. He slowly got out of the car, his hands visible, remaining calm. Passers-by were beginning to stop, some taking out their phones to film. The image of a respected black admiral handcuffed by a white police officer already created a shocking contrast. "I assure you, officer, you're making a mistake." Marcus kept his voice calm, but a flash of defiance crossed his eyes. Randall ignored all arguments. The handcuffs snapped around Marcus's wrists, and the scene turned into a public humiliation. The stares of passers-by, some shocked, others incredulous, weighed upon him like a silent condemnation. An old woman whispered to her daughter, "It's not possible, an admiral," and yet. Marcus, despite the humiliation, showed no sign of it. He held his head high, knowing that his dignity and honor could not be taken away by an arbitrary act. His thoughts turned to his career, his years of service, and the justice he would have to defend. In the police car, Randall allowed himself a satisfied smile, convinced he had imposed his law. But Marcus, calm, analyzed the situation. Every detail of this arrest would become proof of the abuse of power. This moment, he thought, would be the beginning of a battle far bigger than this deserted street. And as the police car started up, Marcus Thompson, Admiral of the Navy, knew that his career, his honor and his reputation were about to be put to the test, but he would not give in. News of Marcus Thompson's arrest spread like wildfire. In the Navy, the Admiral's colleagues were stunned. How could a man respected for decades be humiliated in this way, in the middle of the street, in front of witnesses and cell phone cameras? At headquarters, the senior officers met urgently. The second-in-command, Colonel James Parker, immediately called Marcus's family. Marcus was arrested for dangerous driving, but we all know this is a monumental mistake. We need to act quickly. Meanwhile, Marcus was being taken to headquarters. Agent Randall, still convinced of his authority, had no idea that his actions would cause a national scandal. Marcus, for his part, remained calm. His hands were cuffed, but his mind was free. "Agent Randall, you know what you're doing is wrong," Marcus said, his voice calm but icy. Randall shrugged, "I'm just doing my job." "My job," Marcus replied firmly, "is to serve my country with honor and discipline. I will not allow you to tarnish that with your prejudices." At the station, Marcus's lawyers were immediately contacted. Among them, Laura Simmons, a civil rights specialist known for her tenacity in defending victims of injustice, arrived with a case already prepared. "Admiral Thompson, we will rectify this situation. Every detail, every camera, every witness, everything will be used to reveal the truth." Marcus nodded. "Thank you, Ms. Simmons. But I want this fight to be for those who don't have my voice or my position." The local press, alerted by witnesses, began to publish images of the arrest. The headlines were shocking: "An admiral arrested on suspicion of dangerous driving, public humiliation of a black officer." Social media erupted. Outraged citizens demanded answers from the police. Tensions rose when the national network broadcast images of Marcus, motionless and dignified despite the handcuffs. Legal experts explained that the arrest was illegal and constituted a blatant case of abuse of power and racial discrimination. In his temporary cell, Marcus remained calm. He knew the battle would be difficult, but he was ready. Every second of public humiliation would be transformed into proof of the resilience and integrity he had embodied for years. That day, a clear message swept through the city: injustice can strike anyone, but dignity and truth are more powerful weapons than fear or hatred. The media frenzy surrounding Marcus Thompson's arrest reached its peak. Social media was flooded with indignant comments, some explaining Marcus's military background and exemplary career, others openly denouncing the systemic racism of Officer Randall. In his temporary office, after being released on bail, Marcus met with Laura Simmons and a team of civil rights lawyers. The documents were spread out on the table: surveillance camera footage, witness statements, and a damning history of similar behavior by Randall. "Agent Randall has several complaints of abuse of power and discrimination. We now have the evidence to hold him accountable for his actions," Laura explained confidently. Marcus, his face grave but determined, replied, "Then let's make sure everyone sees that injustice has its limits. It's not just for me, it's for all those who have no voice." A few days later, at the first public hearing, the courtroom was packed with journalists and curious onlookers. Marcus entered the room with the same poise he had always displayed, his uniform immaculate, his gaze steady but intense. Officer Randall, visibly uncomfortable, avoided his gaze. Marcus's lawyer methodically laid out the facts. "Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Marcus Thompson has committed no offense. His arrest was not only unfounded, but a clear example of racially motivated abuse of power." Marcus then spoke. "I have never doubted that my career or reputation could be attacked. But I refuse to let ignorance and hatred define who I am. Every citizen deserves to be treated with respect and justice, regardless of their rank, skin color, or status." The room, hanging on his every word, felt the weight of the injustice but also the man's quiet strength. The media captured every moment. Agent Randall, confronted with the facts and the magnitude of his mistake, paled before the camera. Within hours, public opinion had completely shifted. Newspapers published editorials in support of Marcus, and the Navy expressed its official backing. Randall was suspended and placed under internal investigation. This chapter marked a turning point. Far from being defeated, Marcus used transparency and truth to transform a public humiliation into a resounding demonstration of justice and dignity. His career, derailed in seconds by discrimination, rose again stronger than ever. A few weeks after the hearing, Marcus Thompson was invited to an official ceremony at Navy headquarters. Flags flew proudly, and officers of all ranks were present to celebrate not only his decades of service, but also the courage with which he had faced injustice. Officer Randall, meanwhile, was now under investigation and suspended. His arrogance had given way to humiliation and a painful awareness of his actions. The media were now hounding him, exposing his past mistakes and discriminatory behavior. On the platform, Marcus addressed an attentive crowd. "What I went through did not break me. It reminded me why I dedicated my life to serving this country and defending those who have no voice. Dignity and justice are not privileges reserved for a few. They are the right of all." Applause erupted in the room. The faces of colleagues, junior officers, and civilians reflected respect and admiration. Journalists captured every word, and the images quickly spread across the country, inspiring thousands. In his speech, Marcus also announced his commitment to fighting abuse of power and discrimination within law enforcement and civil society. He wanted this experience to serve as a lesson and a springboard for real change. At the end of the ceremony, as Marcus stepped down from the platform, passers-by and military personnel cheered him. The same cameras that had filmed his humiliation a few weeks earlier now captured his triumphant dignity. Admiral Marcus Thompson, once the victim of an unjust and arbitrary act, had transformed that experience into a victory. Not through revenge, but through courage, truth, and integrity. His career was not only saved, it was elevated to an even more respected level, and he became a national symbol of justice and resilience. The lesson was clear: no discrimination, no abuse of power can extinguish the light of dignity and truth.